Hello fellow humans, today I want to have a look at the top 5 tier 7 tanks in the World of Tanks Blitz, and obviously there's a very easy start to that, and that is obviously the Smasher, because, I mean, it has to be on this list. And what is your top 5 best tier 7s? Put it in the comments. Now, for a tank to be OP, you need one of two things. That is either a good mix of everything that is quite easy to play, like for example a Chieftain T95 in World of Tanks PC, or something like a Smasher that has one factor that is so incredibly insane that nothing else can match it. And with the Smasher, that is its gun. Because here's the thing, you have AP with 640 alpha damage, you have heat with over 250 millimeters of penetration, and you have HE with almost 1,000 average damage, which means that no matter what you do with this tank, you're always going to have some way to fight the enemy. Even if it's a tier 8 heavy tank, you have an option to fight them. If it's a tier 6 light tank, you can one-shot them. You can, even if you get lucky, one-shot a Borsig with this vehicle. So I don't think I have to mention more, and that's, I think, the strong thing about this tank is just the absolute sheer insane alpha damage that you got. It's just... What are you going to do? This is just a tank that was an absolute mistake to even ever release in this form, because the KV2's balancing factor is its horrible accuracy and lack of penetration. This thing has the accuracy, it has the penetration, so it's pretty much, you know, I mean, still, it doesn't have that amazing armor. Obviously, it'll work well enough. It doesn't have a lot of gun depression. It's not the fastest of tanks, but the fact that the gun is that incredible, and I mean, I could just pen a tier 8 heavy like nothing, and even if I couldn't, I just swap to heat, I'll pen him anyway. So that's the crazy thing about this vehicle, and the HE penetration is pretty high as well, which means that on top of being able to pretty much one-shot a lot of light tanks, you can do it to some medium tanks as well that have 85, 90 millimeters of armor in some places. You can go through the front plate of a T43 with this vehicle if you use calibrated. So that's I don't think I have to say more about a vehicle like this, so let's move on to number 2. And obviously this list is my opinion, so if you disagree, again, as I said, put it in the comments, because this is not like, oh, this is factually correct, this is more like my opinion. Next on the list, there is the Annihilator. I'm personally not a fan of this vehicle at all. However, it simply has to be on this list for its absolutely bonkers gun and pretty solid armor as well. Now, obviously, again, I don't like this tank. I haven't played it much. I never will, because the 3-shot to me is bad. Because it takes so much out of a tank that it could be. If it's a regular 3-shot autoloader, it would be a much better tank, in my opinion. Because the thing is, the 3-shot, it just limits you. If a tank that is on 100 HP, you have to fire all 3. If you're shooting at a tank that's on the move, you again have to fire all 3. You might only hit 1. So that is a pretty big downside of the 3-shot shotgun or whatever the hell this is. However, it does make up for it by, first of all, having the speed boost, and by having quite solid armor. Now, solid armor in this case still means that the Smasher can penetrate it with HE through the side of the turret. The Smasher is a completely different league to a vehicle like this. You know, like comparing the Annihilator to the Smasher is like comparing LeBron to your cousin. They might both play basketball, but that's not a fair comparison. So, at this point, again, I'm not a fan of this vehicle. You probably noticed. So, again, why is it on the list? Well, it was a Halloween tag quite a while ago. A lot of people do think that it is incredibly OP, and if you play it correctly, if you play it in a slow, steady playstyle where you can get your 3 shots on target and the relatively miserable penetration of this vehicle, you will be able to just about get enough done with it. So, well, it's on the list because people think it's OP, not because I do, but more or less, in the end, it is performing very well. It kind of does deserve a spot on the list anyway, because tier 7 is really a weird tier where, I mean, it's true for tier 8 as well, where a lot of mediums are bad, so it's mostly heavies, and the Annihilator is one of them. Then number 3, and the Tiger 1. It's a very good package of pretty much everything. It's got solid DPM, it's got a good gun, it's got the accuracy, it's got even 7 degrees of gun depression. It's mobile enough, and while the armor is quite lacking, this is a tank that used to be pretty damn horrible. However, over time, it morphed into something that obviously a lot of beginners will get, because, I mean, it's the Tiger, and as long as you know how to angle it, and we'll talk about that later, it will be pretty easy to play. Now, how do you angle the Tiger? It's very simple. Put your gun over your front track wheel, wiggle back and forth. That's pretty much true for most of these square tanks. That's the easiest way, and it's especially true for something like an E100, where the turret is even flatter. You always want to hold that diamond shape, where if your gun's pointing at the enemy, you want your gun to be over your front track wheel, because then you have the best armor combination between your front plate and your side plate without over-angling either of them, obviously, because if you turn too far to the side, then your side plate gets weak. So, obviously, that's the very big problem with flat armor. The bonus of flat armor, however, is that you can store a lot more stuff, because it's a lot less restricted than a very slanted plate. So, can you load some more ammo? Well, you can load plenty of ammo in this vehicle, and you can use it as well, because this is a pretty damn good gun as well. 220 alpha damage, it's not the highest really, however, it is going to do just about fine enough. And it does have the DPM to compensate for it, which is very nice. And one thing that definitely benefits this vehicle as well is that it's on the line to the E100, which is a very easy tank to get into, pretty easy beginner tank. And a lot of people will go for the Tiger first, so it is going to be a lot of players that don't know how to play the game at all. To be fair, there are a lot of players with thousands of battles that have no idea how to play the game, but let's assume that people are going to learn eventually. So there are going to be a lot of people in this vehicle that have no idea what they're doing, and because the Tiger is just a legendary vehicle. And for that, it's equipped, I think, just about right. It's nowhere broken or OP or anything like that. However, if you're a new player, if you're looking for something interesting, the Tiger can just be enough for you, and that's why it's on the list. And then number 4, the T-29. Do you want to go hold down? This is a tank for you. A turret that is impenetrable from the front, pretty much. And a hull that is just about fine enough, especially against tier 6s. This is going to hold up quite well. You also have 210 alpha damage, okay penetration, and decent DPM. The mobility on this thing is not that great. However, if you want to go hull down, and if you want to stay there, use the 10 degrees of gun depression, and the incredibly good turret, this is a tank that can be really good. Now, obviously, it's about hull down with this vehicle. However, I don't think it's quite as good as a Tiger. However, it does have the higher alpha damage, which means if you use it, it can be a great tank. And that's why I'm going to go right into the battle here, because I mean, I don't want them to be too long, but this is going to be a very interesting way to figure it out. Now, in a situation like this, you don't want this tank to be it, right? It's on flat ground, and it's not looking good, which means a situation like this is something that you absolutely want to avoid with this vehicle. Ideally, you want to get hull down, you want to hide that hull, you want to make sure that your relatively okay DPM can be used where it needs to be. However, if the enemy is incompetent, or a tier 6, then, for example, he can somehow manage to bounce off the side, which is very nice. So, especially against tier 6, this thing is a pretty damn good beast. And overall, it's a tank that I can recommend. Now, obviously the E5 got buffed a bit, which is nice. However, the line, the M103 is disappointing. This T25 is also disappointing. But overall, the line's not that great. So, while it's a good tank, I don't think it's that worth it. And at last, number 5, not a heavy tank, the M4 Tier 1D. Now, why do I pick this vehicle? Obviously, it's been given away for free in an event a while ago, which means there are a lot of them. So you should know, be like, hey, this thing's pretty easy to beat. And it is if it's played by someone that doesn't have a clue of what they're doing. However, 2,800 DPM on this tank. Very accurate, even 8 degrees of gun depression, and one of the fastest tanks in the game as well. The armor is obviously non-existent, which means if you know how to use the gun, if you know how to use the mobility in the right places, this will be an absolute monster, given you don't get shot by a smasher. or an SU-152. So in this game I had about 200 ping, so the driving will be very wonky, and rightfully so. However, this thing excels at essentially being annoying, because that's what it's for. 2.8k DPM, over 70 kilometers an hour top speed. That's what this thing is for. It is to absolutely annoy the ever-living shit out of any enemy that you will be facing. Because, here's the thing, they shoot once, you shoot 3 times. They try to chase you, impossible. They look to one side, you're on the other. So, with the right knowledge, this tank is absolutely insane. And now, ideally, you want to get that on your own. Like, here's the thing. You can watch as many guys as you want. That will not make you a good player unless you actually make it happen in-game. And the way to do that with a vehicle like this in-game is to just, you have to have all the map awareness, right? You have to know exactly what's going on. Where are the enemies? Where are your teammates? Who can shoot you at what time? These kind of things that you've got to think about constantly if you want to be really good at that. However, driving skills are still optional sometimes. But if you made it till here, don't forget to subscribe. And Draculas are don't do that, obviously, because if you just simply rush into an enemy to die, that's a pretty bad idea in any tank. So, can't recommend doing that. At 2,800 DPM, that's just insane. I mean, a lot of tier 7s don't really have that. I mean, even a Dracula has pretty poor DPM. So, all I gotta do, it doesn't even matter if I'm shooting all these shells, because you can't fire back anyway. And I have 230 ping, so someone might miraculously hit at one point. However, this thing, you could have gotten it free, even though it's a premium tank. So that's a great bonus there. And, if you know what you're doing, it's an incredibly fun tank, right? Way more fun than something like an AMX 1357. And it's good as well, not just fun. Thank you for watching. See you next one. Goodbye.